you need to have a sort of time scale. You need to report or to be supervised by, the employer, and you need to work in a specific place in order to develop your. Normally, these are the requirements for an employment relationship, and none of these, characteristics are, complied with by the independent contractor status. Therefore, for me, it's very clear, and we have been very clear, not only to the regulator, but sometimes we have to go to the courts, of the different countries to sustain the independent contractor status of direct selling sales force. And you're right. Even though this has been recognized by the governments and by the courts, normally because of political reasons, and the governments normally try to offer some kind of benefit, particularly, for example, in Brazil and in Mexico, to the ex-sellers, trying to assimilate them at some point, and in connection to some benefits like unemployment, as you mentioned, or other kind of social benefits. The direct selling people, but they are not. Separation is very clear, and I think that it is essential for the survival of our model, and it would have devastating effects for the direct sellers if they are deemed or considered by any law or decision of any authority that they are in the future employees. I think that our model is totally different to some business e-business model platforms like Uber, as mentioned before by Kerry and Pontus. I know that, for example, there's a new legislation in the Netherlands that has considered the Uber drivers employees. But we have to make also the separation of our business model to this, digital platform business model of Uber and other, companies, because it's not the same, and they should not be confused.
Well, that's great. I'm going to ask Pontus. I want y'all to be interactive. I haven't let it to do this.
Thanks, Adolfo. I can only agree. Sorry.
If I just make a quick comment, I think something Alfonso said is extremely important. He said devastating to our direct sellers. I think that's an important point to make to this conference. We have a lot of regulators in this audience. It isn't just the companies here. It might come off of, well, these are company executives protecting their company interests. Well, there are 190 million people worldwide engaged in direct selling, aren't there, Pontus? And what Alfonso said about devastating is, we just said earlier, people want to start their own business. This is the peculiar class here of people who want to be entrepreneurial and want to have their own destiny. You start fiddling with the model and creating these things, then you will have direction. Companies, you start requiring benefits, then companies will start treating, if it's possible to survive, these individuals as employees, and as a consequence, the attraction for the 190 million people will evaporate. Just wanted to add, if you agreed with that, and then a little bit about the challenges, which I think are even more acute in Europe, about not being able to necessarily, some policymakers understand the distinction between our business model, gig, and other similar activities.
Well, yeah, I agree with you. Direct selling provides an important opportunity, which is different from the employment. And I think that governments also need to recognize that this is an established opportunity outside the normal employment market that is providing an income opportunity for people on the side of their job, or sometimes even people who are outside the ordinary employment. And I think it is important to highlight that it's not a matter of choosing whether or not those direct selling companies should treat these people as employees or not. It's a matter of it's a fundamental barrier for direct selling companies. I mean, it's a matter of implementing employment like conditions that would essentially take away the main attractiveness in direct selling, and it would remove direct selling in total. Now, with the gig economy and the online development, we see a trend whereby a regular employment is perhaps less attractive among young people than it was before, and you see that people may be seeking several different income sources, and I think it's so. I understand that's why the risk is heightened here in this development, and the need for us to continue to point out the differences between direct selling and other gig opportunities. I think it is more. This is a symptom. This is a specific symptom of a more general challenge that we see now with the digital development and the transformation of all businesses. I mean, both within the traditional retail and within direct selling. This has created and is creating a new regulatory challenge and new risk for the direct selling channel. One example is the worker platform, the platform workers and the gig economy mix up, so to speak. But there is also a more blurred line between traditional retail venturing into e-commerce and direct selling that is done online. And I think this is both an opportunity and a threat for the direct selling industry. But I think it is important that the direct selling industry highlights and educates the regulators about the significant differences between direct selling businesses operating in an online environment and traditional retail outlets operating an e-commerce model. I think I may have lost your specific question.
I'm just fascinated by them. I'm gonna have Carrie comment very quickly on this, but you're absolutely right. I believe our challenge, and this is just a challenge for any industry, anybody that's involved in any kind of commercial activity, is fully explaining what it is, who we are, and how we do business. I think what you're saying is there are instrumentalities that are used, be they e-commerce type things, social selling, and so forth. And certainly, retail has entered into a lot more of the, if you will, selling through certainly the internet and that type of thing. But we need to distinguish between the business model and the instrumentalities that I think you're saying. There's obviously going to be some interest in regulating, whether it be social media to some extent or instrumentalities. And I think in Europe, in fact, this is under a quite, if I understand it, quite significant review. But again, there's a difference between a retailer using the same tool and a direct seller. The direct seller is, after all, a business person, the independently using this instrument, and the retailer is still the retailer. So I think that will remain our challenge globally, if I understand the point, which I think was a good point. So I think it was excellent. Carrie, I don't know if we wanted to pick up on that or go back to some aspects of the challenge with the model that we have to explain to our audience and more broadly